It started as a routine Senate hearing. Ted Cruz, the seasoned Texas senator with a Harvard law pedigree, facing off against first-term Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. He came in ready to humiliate her, dismissing her education, belittling her experience, and even laughing at her law degree, all on live television. But in less than a minute, Crockett would flip the script. What she revealed not only silenced Cruz in front of the nation, it left everyone in the room stunned, and may have dealt a blow to his career he'll never forget. If you're here for stories that cut through the noise, the moments where confidence meets its match, and power gets checked in real time, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you the confrontations, the receipts, and the turning points. The headlines don't fully tell you, so you never miss the truth behind the moment. It began like so many Senate hearings before it. Ted Cruz, the seasoned Texas senator, with a Harvard law degree, preparing to put a political newcomer in her place. Across from him sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a first-term representative from Texas's 30th district. Cruz had the advantage on paper: years of courtroom experience, national debate titles, and a reputation for outthinking opponents under the glare of television lights. He leaned back in his chair, confident, ready to humiliate her with sharp questions and pointed jabs about her qualifications. Crockett appeared calm, but her mind was sharp and focused. Before running for Congress, she had spent nearly 2 decades as a civil rights attorney, defending voting rights, taking on police misconduct, and winning cases that were uphill battles from the start. She knew Cruz's style. She'd studied his arrogance, his tendency to underestimate women, and his habit of wielding his credentials like a weapon. The topic that day was voting rights. Specifically, Texas laws, Crockett argued, were designed to suppress Black and Latino voters. For her, the issue was deeply personal. For Cruz, it was an opportunity to reinforce his image as a constitutional conservative who could dismantle any liberal argument. His opening remarks dripped with polite condescension, complimenting her for taking time out of her busy schedule before questioning whether she had the legal expertise to speak on constitutional law. He pointed out her education at the University of Houston Law Center, calling it a fine regional school, before suggesting that such complex questions might be better left to those who had attended institutions like Harvard and argued before the Supreme Court. Then came the chuckle, a small, dismissive laugh that carried across the hearing room. Cruz was laughing at her law degree, at the idea that she could stand toe-to-toe with him on constitutional matters. Cameras caught it, staffers noticed it, and Crockett saw it for exactly what it was. That was the moment she reached for a single sheet of paper she had prepared for exactly this confrontation. Her voice, steady and measured, cut through the tension. She agreed with Cruz's suggestion to discuss credentials, then calmly laid out the facts. Yes, Cruz had passed the Texas bar exam on his first try, but so had she. The difference was in the score. He had placed in the 77th percentile, while she had scored in the 95th. She didn't stop there. Maybe the bar exam wasn't a fair comparison, she said, given the years between their attempts, so she turned to results. Cruz had argued 9 cases before the Supreme Court and won 5, a 55% success rate. She had tried 47 civil rights cases in federal court and won 43, a 91% success rate. And unlike Cruz, she pointed out, she hadn't had the full legal resources of the state of Texas at her disposal. Her victories were David versus Goliath battles, and she had been David every single time. In that instant, the energy in the room shifted. Republican senators looked uneasy, Democratic senators leaned forward, and Cruz's trademark smirk disappeared under the bright lights and rolling cameras. The confrontation he thought he controlled had slipped entirely out of his hands. She was only just getting warmed up. You want to have a discussion about constitutional law? Fine, let's have a discussion about constitutional law. I've successfully argued that voter ID laws violate the 14th Amendment, and I've won cases proving that shutting down polling locations amounts to discriminatory voting practices. I've taken down laws nearly identical to the ones you're defending right now. Cruz tried to speak. Congresswoman, if I could, I'm not done. Senator. The steel in her tone shut him down instantly. For the first time in his career, Cruz resembled a student being scolded by a teacher. That's when Crockett brought out her biggest weapon. Let's talk about your most famous Supreme Court case, Senator, the one you conveniently leave out when you boast about your credentials. Texas v. Pennsylvania, December. Cruz's face drained of color, shifting from pale to a sickly green. He knew what was coming. You remember that case, don't you, Senator? The one where you asked the Supreme Court to toss out the results of a presidential election. The one where you claimed millions of legally cast ballots should be discarded. The room went utterly silent. Even Republican senators looked uneasy. And what happened in that case? Senator, the Supreme Court didn't just reject it, they refused to even hear arguments. They dismissed it in a single sentence. One sentence. Senator, after all that Harvard training, after all your supposed constitutional expertise, the highest court in the land dismissed your argument so completely, they wouldn't even grant it a hearing. Crockett leaned forward, her voice steady with the authority of someone who had spent years in court fighting for justice. In that case, you were so proud to attach your name to, Senator. You didn't just suffer a legal loss, you attacked the very constitutional principles you claimed to uphold. She raised a document for all to see. This is the Supreme Court's dismissal order. Want me to read it? It says, and I quote, Texas has not demonstrated a judicially cognizable interest in the manner in which another state conducts its elections. Her voice grew sharper, the restrained passion starting to show. In plain English, Senator, that means the Supreme Court found your arguments so weak, so fundamentally flawed, that you didn't even grasp the basic concepts of federalism, concepts taught in first-year constitutional law, concepts I teach my interns. But she still wasn't done. You want to know the difference between us, Senator? When I lose a case, it's because I was up against unlimited resources and systemic bias. When you lose a case, it's because you chose politics over the Constitution. She rose slightly, her voice carrying through the chamber. I have spent my career defending the voting rights you're trying to dismantle. I've won cases protecting the very people your laws are designed to silence. And I didn't need a Harvard degree to do it. All I needed was a genuine understanding of the Constitution, rather than using it as a political stage prop. Cruz finally managed to speak, but his voice wavered. Congresswoman, that's not your mischaracterizing my record. She cut him off cleanly. Am I, Senator? Because I have the court documents right here. I have the dismissal orders. I have the win-loss records. Which part exactly am I Cruz's eyes darted around the room, looking for support from his Republican colleagues. But they kept their eyes down, avoiding his gaze. Then Crockett delivered her final blow, as precise as a scalpel. Here's what the American people need to understand. Senator, you didn't mock my law degree because you thought it was less worthy. You mocked it because you were intimidated by a black woman who earned her success rather than inheriting it, who fought for justice instead of playing political games, and who truly understands the Constitution instead of memorizing it for debate points. Her tone was even but powerful. I may have graduated from a regional school, Senator, but I learned something there Harvard apparently failed to teach you. The law isn't about proving how smart you are, it's about protecting people who can't protect themselves. And by looking at your record, that's a lesson you still haven't learned. The chamber erupted. Democratic senators sat in shock at what they had just witnessed. Republican senators looked ready to sink into their seats. Staffers frantically checked their phones to see if the exchange had already gone viral. Cruz remained in his chair, speechless. The man who built his image on being the smartest in any room had just been taken apart on live television by someone he'd tried to dismiss as unqualified. For the first time in his career, Ted Cruz had nothing to say. The silence inside the Senate Judiciary Committee was deafening. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by pure disbelief. In over 20 years of politics, no one had ever dismantled him so completely, so publicly, so mercilessly. Committee Chairman Dick Durbin tried to bring order back, but even he sounded shaken. We'll take a short recess, he said quietly, as cameras kept rolling. Cruz's hands trembled as he gathered his papers. Republican senators quickly left the chamber, eager not to be linked to what they'd just seen. Democratic senators stayed, some smiling openly, others trying to keep a straight face. Crockett sat calmly, as if she had just commented on the weather rather than ended a political career. Within minutes, the hashtag Jasmine Crockett destroys Cruz was trending nationwide and, within an hour, worldwide. Clips spread across the UK, Canada, Australia, and Europe, with users adding their own commentary. Foreign news outlets from Germany, France, and Japan picked up the story, translating the highlights and analyzing what it revealed about American politics. Political science professors began including the moment in lectures on rhetoric and political communication. Debate coaches cited it as a prime example of preparation. Overcoming privilege. Corporate training teams began using it to show how factual precision can dismantle intimidation tactics in the workplace. Law schools added it to advocacy classes as a model of cross-examination and evidence-based counterattacks. Even medical schools used it to demonstrate how to remain composed and stick to facts under hostile questioning. Social media exploded with captions. Harvard law grad gets schooled by University of Houston alum. This is what happens when privilege meets preparation. Other viral posts read, Ted Cruz just got the legal education he should have gotten at Harvard. This is what happens when you challenge someone who actually studied. The most clip featured Cruz's smug laugh, instantly followed by Crockett's brutal reference to his bar exam performance. Within 2 hours, it had 2.3 million views and was still climbing. Twitter's algorithm pushed the content to users who normally ignored politics but couldn't resist the drama. Analytics firms reported record-breaking engagement, speeds, even major election night moments. Marketing experts dissected how the moment combined shock, justice, and drama to create the perfect viral storm. Crisis managers began showing clients why arrogance in a confrontation can be fatal. Frame-by-frame analyses of Cruz's expressions went viral, pinpointing the exact second his confidence crumbled. Celebrities, athletes, and influencers, usually silent on politics, shared the clip, some with nothing but a string of fire emojis. Sports commentators compared it to legendary knockouts in boxing or epic trash talk, fails in the NBA, on TikTok. Compilation videos showed Cruz's smugness slowly dissolve into defeat. The algorithm blasted Cruz versus Crockett content onto millions of screens within hours. Digital marketing firms began analyzing the TikTok reaction as a textbook example of how political material could achieve extraordinary visibility through clever editing and strategic music choices. One standout clip, set to intense orchestral music, captured the exact instant Cruz appeared to realize he was hopelessly outmatched, with his expression shifting from smug self-assurance to bewildered panic to outright fear in under 10 seconds. Within the first 24 hours, the video racked up more than 5 million views, as users layered on their own commentary tracks and reaction videos. TikTok users quickly adopted Cruz's stunned face as a meme format, pairing it with captions about being humbled or hit with an unexpected reality check. Law students produced educational TikToks dissecting precisely why Crockett's arguments were so damaging, turning the exchange into impromptu constitutional law lessons that spread rapidly among younger viewers. Psychology students broke down Cruz's body language and subtle facial expressions, producing mini-documentaries about nonverbal cues and the psychology of embarrassment that resonated with millions. Music producers began sampling soundbites from the confrontation, remixing Crockett's sharpest lines into beats that took on a viral life of their own. Comedy writers and satirists jumped on the trend, creating sketches and parody videos imagining Cruz in other scenarios where his overconfidence might backfire. Animation teams developed cartoon renditions of the face-off, with some producing fully animated shorts that reimagined the scene in alternate settings and time periods. At the same time, Instagram stories overflowed with screenshots of Cruz's shocked look, often paired with fire emojis and applause symbols as users celebrated Crockett's commanding performance. Instagram reels featuring the moment began appearing every few minutes, each with different music tracks and dramatic edits, accentuating Cruz's downfall. Even beauty influencers and lifestyle bloggers, who usually stayed clear of politics, shared the footage with captions like "when someone tests you but you're ready" and "main character energy." Fashion pages began breaking down Crockett's attire from the hearing, praising her polished power dressing and unexpectedly turning her into a style inspiration. Even LinkedIn, typically reserved for strictly professional posts, saw an unusual surge of content analyzing the exchange from a career growth perspective, with coaches stressing lessons about preparation and humility in the workplace. YouTubers rushed to publish reaction videos, with some streaming their live responses to the viral moment. Political commentary channels that usually took hours or days to release new content pushed out emergency episodes to ride the viral wave. Educational creators experienced major spikes in subscribers as they posted in-depth analyses of the legal principles Crockett used to dismantle Cruz's stance. The speed with which creators across every platform mobilized illustrated just how explosive the moment had become in the digital sphere. Reddit threads lit up with detailed legal dissections, with law students and practicing attorneys explaining why Crockett's points were so airtight. The Murder by Words subreddit saw the clip hit its all-time top posts within hours, while political subreddits of all leanings debated its implications. Even Facebook, with its older demographic, saw massive engagement as parents and grandparents shared the footage with captions about respect, preparation, and standing up to bullies. WhatsApp group chats buzzed with forwarded versions of the clip, and Snapchat users began making custom filters featuring Cruz's stunned expression. The moment's virality pushed it beyond the realm of ordinary political content, morphing into a cultural phenomenon that spread from gaming Discord channels to professional Slack workspaces. Proof that political theater can sometimes capture the public's imagination in ways traditional discourse cannot. Twitch streamers interrupted gaming sessions to react live, with chat rooms exploding in real-time commentary. Over on Pinterest, users created motivational boards showcasing Crockett's quotes on preparation and confronting bullies, transforming her words into inspiration for millions seeking empowerment. Political Twitter went into overdrive. Progressive accounts that had long hoped for Cruz to be publicly taken down relished the moment. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted, "When you try to come for someone's credentials, but forget they actually earned theirs." President Biden's official account posted, "This is what happens when you judge a book by its cover." Congresswoman Crockett showed grace under pressure and excellence in action. Yet it wasn't only Democrats cheering. Even some Republicans tired of Cruz's grandstanding enjoyed the spectacle. Conservative commentator Ana Navarro wrote, "I may disagree with Crockett's politics, but that was a masterclass in preparation and execution. Cruz walked into that one." CNN broke into regular programming with the headline, "Congresswoman Destroys Ted Cruz in Explosive Hearing Exchange." MSNBC's Rachel Maddow devoted her entire show to the incident, calling it the most devastating takedown in recent political memory. Even Fox News couldn't completely ignore it, though they downplayed the humiliation by framing it as a heated exchange. The Washington Post published a live fact-check, verifying every element of Crockett's claims about Cruz's record. The New York Times ran a feature titled "The Civil Rights Lawyer Who Took Down the Senator." By evening, Cruz's team was scrambling, issuing a statement accusing Crockett of launching personal attacks rather than addressing policy. But the attempted damage control only fueled more ridicule. When Cruz tried to tweet his version of events, replies were merciless. "Did your Harvard education not cover percentiles? Maybe stick to Cancun instead of hearings. When you come for the Queen, you better not miss." Cruz's Fox News appearance that night backfired badly. Even host Tucker Carlson, usually supportive, asked, "Ted, how do you recover from something like that?" Cruz's answer, a rambling defense of his credentials and a swipe at Crockett's alleged partisanship, only cemented the image of a wounded politician scrambling to save face. Political strategists immediately recognized a turning point. For years, Cruz had been considered one of the Republican Party's sharpest debaters, using intellect to intimidate opponents. Crockett didn't just win the argument, she dismantled the foundation of his political brand. Democratic strategists viewed the exchange as a playbook for countering Republican attacks, rather than defensively justifying credentials. Respond with facts, meticulous preparation, and controlled aggression. Republican strategists feared that Cruz's embarrassment would encourage more Democrats to challenge GOP figures head-on. If a freshman congresswoman could decimate Ted Cruz, what might happen to other Republican heavyweights? Beneath the public drama lay a more personal narrative. Those close to Cruz said he was more rattled than they'd ever seen, unusually quiet, and withdrawn in the days afterward. For Crockett, the clash was the payoff of years of preparation. In a CNN interview later that week, she revealed she'd been studying Cruz's record for months, expecting an eventual confrontation. "I've been dealing with bullies like Ted Cruz my whole career," she said. "Men who think their Ivy League degrees let them dismiss anyone who doesn't look or sound like them. But the law is the law, and facts are facts." Observers began questioning whether Cruz's 2024 re-election was now at risk. Polls showed a notable drop in his approval, especially among suburban voters who had watched the moment unfold. More broadly, the exchange signaled a shift in the nature of political debates. No longer could Republican figures rely solely on prestige and condescension to prevail. The Crockett model, deep preparation, precise facts, and fearless counterpunching, became the new Democratic standard. Within a week, Crockett had been invited to speak at Harvard Law School, Yale Law School, and numerous other institutions. The University of Houston Law Center announced the creation of the Jasmine Crockett Excellence in Advocacy Scholarship Fund. Civil rights groups hailed her performance as a defining moment for Black women in politics. The NAACP released a statement praising her as a brilliant example of poise under pressure and excellence in the face of challenges. Yet, perhaps the most impactful acknowledgement came from aspiring law students, especially women, and students of color, who viewed Crockett's display as proof that skill and preparation could triumph over privilege and arrogance. The exchange between Cruz and Crockett soon became must-watch material in political science classrooms nationwide. It symbolized more than a single heated encounter. It marked a turning point where the traditional rules of political engagement were broken and replaced with something new. Political analysts began using the term the Crockett effect to describe the notion that politicians could no longer lean on shallow credentials or personal jabs without being ready to defend their real records. That, as the dust settled, one reality became undeniable. The clash between Ted Cruz and Jasmine Crockett was not merely political theater. It was a preview of a new political era where preparation outweighed pedigree, facts overruled credentials, and underestimating opponents carried personal risk. Cruz's career endured, but his image never fully recovered. He became more cautious in hearings, less prone to personal attacks, and more mindful that the next adversary could be even better prepared than himself. Crockett, in contrast, emerged as a rising figure in Democratic politics, prompting speculation about her chances for future statewide or even national office. Still, the greatest influence was on the young viewers at home, particularly women and people of color, who took her performance as a sign that they could challenge anyone, anywhere, if they came ready. The tale of Ted Cruz mocking Jasmine Crockett's law degree evolved into a cautionary example about the perils of arrogance and the strength of preparation. It demonstrated that, in both politics and life, where you studied is less important than what you learned there and how you apply that knowledge to serve others. Cruz learned the hard way that in today's political environment, underestimating an opponent isn't just dangerous, it can end careers. Crockett, meanwhile, showed that the best way to respond to a bully is not to retreat, but to stand firm, speak truth, and reveal what genuine strength truly is. If you enjoyed seeing Jasmine Crockett take on Ted Cruz with pure facts and meticulous preparation, remember to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more remarkable political moments. Share your thoughts in the comments. Was this the most brutal political takedown you've ever witnessed? And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our breakdown of the next viral political moment that has everyone talking.